What's up, legends? Welcome to Blindside second podcast reveal for preseason analysis. Next up is the Doggies. Brownie's still not with us today because it's the same day that we're recording all the same podcasts, and he's got some, I guess, personal family drama he's dealing with after losing his dog. So thoughts and prayers again out to Brownie here. But talking on the bye schedule of the Doggies, Kenty, bye in round 2, round 15, and round 18. Now, I would probably say here typically invest after round 2. But if you have need, say, a Jacob Carraz, who we'll likely talk about on this potty, then if long as you've got the coverage for him in round 2, I think he's definitely an investment to consider. They are typically in a void over Origin. They missed 2 of the major buys, but you can invest from round 19 because they have no buys for the rest of the season. So the ideal time to buy is probably after round 2 up until Origin, and then really early. I guess you can buy in the last minor buy of the season and take them on from there. So what are your takes on the investment time to start the season?
I'd agree. I'm going to put it out there. There's only one player for me of interest in this team, and that's Carraz. I am not interested in any other player. We're going to get to it more, but I think Bailey Hayward is a huge trap right now. Again, at best for me, he is a watch, but is more a void. So really the only player I'm considering is Carraz. He still has DPP, which is incredibly valuable when it comes to winger, fullback, centre. Yeah, right now for me, it's either going to be having a centre of Carraz or Herbie. And if I can swing it, I would probably, I'm looking like it maybe having both of them and then trying my best to just keep it as that for the year and using value players as my backup for when they're on the bye, which in this case would be round 2. I've also said to you that when it comes to Carraz and the likelihood of playing Origin, so my rule for myself this year is that if they're going to play Origin at all this year, and even if I think about that they could make it in, like say a Preston, I'm going to start with them. I want all players who are going to play Origin in my team to be there from day one, because then I get the best value out of them as I possibly can, rather than bringing them in at round 6, round 8, and only getting 4 to 6 rounds out of them. So that's the way I wanted to play it. So therefore, Kraz is literally the only player I'm starting with out of the Dogs.
Yep. And I mimic that too. I have no interest in anyone in this team outside Carraz. And I spoke to you this morning, and that's kind of what got me keen on Carraz. I was ummering and ahhing about it, but the center wing fullback DPP is valuable. And I guess the other argument is that, like, I've even preached this rule for years and years and years. Do not buy expensive centers to start your season.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge that that is the general rule, but this isn't a usual season. Like this year, we have got no guaranteed cheapies in under 350K that are going to be starting, and we know it. We also don't have any guaranteed value from about, say, 350K to about 550K. We've got potential there. Then you've got Stags, Iro that sit out of that, and Herbie, Carraz, other guns. You got no more Bo Fermor, no more Dylan Lucas with edge center DPP. But I will probably allow coaches a bit of freedom here in that I've kind of spoken to Kenty and Brownie about this off recording at times, but I think this has been like a landscape reset for fantasy. Is that we have lost so many DPPs that we used to have previously that existed for multiple years. Prices have been renegotiated without any statistical evidence. And I think what we'll see is the reason that we're not seeing much DPP prevalence, I would say, to start the early team building in the preseason is because we haven't seen round 1 team lists. Now, a good example of that is Tom Chester. If he does play, he's got wing fullback coverage
Center.
at the moment, but he will acquire the center DPP because that looks like the only position he'll be likely to obtain. And I think that's the case for a lot of other players. Again, Orblix Tawa, we talked about in the last potty, he's a mid currently in fantasy, but if he gets named on the edge in round 1, he picks up the edge DPP. So I think don't just cancel players out because they don't have the coverage you need from them. Just keep in mind that a lot of this could change in the first week of team list.
If my count is right, we've only got 12 players who are winger, fullback, DPP. Only 12 at this point, and I have 2 of them, which is Carraz and Makasini. But the likelihood of Makasini actually getting named is very, very slim. So then realistically, I've actually only got the one that can kind of float between my hardest position, which is centre, and then into winger fullback. And then there is very, very few. You've got Garrick, Alamoti, Sammy, Hiroti, Fafita, so that's Jojo, Russell, Tass, Ponga, and Price. So there's very few, and some of those are DPP with half.
Right.
So
Okay.
they don't actually really help you out a whole lot. So it's really worth looking into that.
That's been a hard one. Is Adam Dewey losing half center DPP?
Yeah,
No.
and same with JC.
Yeah, JC as well, half wing fullback. That's deadly. But I guess we'll go into the teams now. I have a question here from a fan, I guess, a blindsided fan. With centre so tough to fill, is Crichton a must-have? Now, this kind of bounces on from, I guess, the start of our discussion here. So I'd like to touch on Crichton first. I'd just like to say it straight to the point. There's no way I'd invest in Crichton. There's a likelihood he retains the goal kicking duties, but there's also every chance that Matt Burton takes them back. So a lot of that base that made up his average for 2025, I don't think will exist anymore. And the likelihood of him averaging more than 41 in 2026 to even present a value case, that's no way I would touch Stephen Crichton myself for 2026. But do you have any take there?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, he's phenomenal on the field. Great to watch all the rest of it. But when it comes to fantasy, he's never really been high on any fantasy coach's radar. When it comes to scoring in fantasy, just doesn't do it. But he's excellent for Carraz. So when him and Carraz partner together, Carraz is the one that scores big time. If Crichton is named, looks real fit, looks strong, it's only going to force me further towards Carraz.
Yeah, for sure. I guess that's an easy one to move on to. Carraz. I think he's undeniable. Again, I think he's still he's priced on value, but I still think he has value he can make. Like he runs over 200 meters a game most games. He offloads like more than I pass the footy in a general footy game. Like that guy is like offload before taking a breath. Like he has so many like fantasy points in just even an offload to ground. 2 to 4 points every single time he does that. He can bust tackles like crazy. He can score tries, line breaks, all the rest of it. And he breaks that mold. Like typically what you see with fantasy players is when they play in the center and they're closer to the ball, they make more points. But Carraz on the wing is just an absolute machine. And the fact that you can put him at center, I cannot say or I can't say yes to him because it does tie up a lot of my value in the centers. And I think I've still got a little bit of time in my mind to overcome that idea of buying two expensive centers to start the year. But at this stage, I can't see any reason why you would say he's not a buy.
The other thing too is, so everything you've just described, and then Gould has said that he's even stepped up higher and better than all of what you've just described this offseason, and that he's been leading the pack. He's been leading the whole team in their trainings and everything else. So from my perspective, if Gouldy is saying that like he's looking the best that they've ever seen him, what are we likely to get? The other thing too is that you could see him as your winger fullback gun rather than that can play in the centre. So you don't have to think, oh man, I'm putting 1.7 million or whatever it is, 1.5 mil into my centres. You can see that you've actually broken them up across centre and pair, say like a Herbie with somebody else. And then you've got Carraz in the winger fullback position that can pivot if you need to into centre, but he's paired now with two other, like say, value winger fullbacks. So you can actually see it a little bit differently as well.
Yeah, true. Like that center wing fullback DPP, especially with the likes of say Tom Duffy, assuming he gets that center wing fullback DPP, you can easily swap those guys in and out. And now you've got the case where it's like you got a Herbie with a Tom Duffy, but you've also got a Carraz with say like a Farlongo and
and when it comes to DPP, there's two positions I think are the most important to have DPP in, and they're the two positions that have the most players in your squad. That's winger fullback and mid. And you just cannot go past having a DPP in both of those two positions because it just makes you so much more pivotable. You can make changes at a drop of a hat, particularly if it's like an hour to go and you find out that a winger is injured and is not going to be playing now in final team lists. You can make a real quick pivot. You don't have to necessarily trade. So for me, those two positions are always my most important positions to find DPP value. And I think you cannot overstate how important DPP actually is.
Just so coaches know, the positions that players hold now in NRL Fantasy will not change. But if they are named in a position that's different from their current positional cover, they will get that as an extra position of coverage in fantasy. So say Connor Tracy from the Bulldogs, winger fullback. But if all of a sudden he's named to play in the centres to start the year, he will acquire winger fullback centre DPP because that's where he's been named in round one team list. There is a bit of grey area around this as to Fan Hub makes the ultimate decision, I guess.
And I was going to say, they can still screw it up.
Yeah, they can screw it up or they not give it to them. And they base that on like perceived longevity in the position. So say if Jacob Preston was named into the centres for 1 week or there was an injury that forced his selection there, they're not going to give him edge centre DPP because it's highly unlikely he's going to play there regularly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so that's the only variation. So keep an eye on round one team lists before locking in your final squad would be my advice. I guess I want to breeze past here, say Matt Burton. I have no interest in him, but a lot of people have been sending me teams with him in there. But Mitch Moses is a way better option, in my opinion. We don't know if Matt Burton has goal kicking, and he lost a lot of the base that comes with being a half when Lockie Galvin joined the team. So no interest there for me. Does that change for you at all?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I've got no interest in him. And I'm betting that Crichton kicks. I think he starts this season kicking, which would be really tough on Burton because across the year, I still think Burton's got something like a 3 or 4% better kicking percentage than Crichton. But I do think that they're going to stick with the captain because ultimately, too, he nailed some pretty must-have real important kicks that Burton doesn't quite seem to get. So I think they're going to stick with Crichton. So another reason not to go with Burton. Yeah.
Max King is of no interest to me. I've had maybe 1 or 2 sides I've seen with him there. I immediately told them to consider other angles. I think he's already at value.
He's at peak.
A tiny bit of like money he could make, but he is definitely not in the conversation in terms of value mids or must-have mids. So consider him later, depending on price. But the big one here we need to talk to is Bailey Haywood. But let's just skip forward a little bit because I think we've got a lot to say on him. Josh Curran, I think, is coming off the bench. He's going to Perth Bears next year. At no stage of 2026 do I think he is going to be a buy unless an injury forces consistent starting minutes. So many people through the middle of the year always want him because he has that mid-edge DPP.
Yeah.
No interest. Jacob Preston, we talked on this last year, and I'm not sure if I convinced you to go with him in the end or you held off and waited.
I did hold off. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a known slow starter. It only lasts for like 3 to 4 matches before he gets into form. But at 720K, he had his arguably best season ever in fantasy last year. He's most likely going to drop cash. Plus, you had the round 2 bye. He's someone I'd probably look at it around 5 or around 6, depending on how low he's gotten. But even then, my edges are pretty solid at the moment in terms of value. So
the only time I would actually consider him, unfortunately, is if Kikau goes down with like a massive injury that's going to give a window of 6 to 8 weeks or like the rest of the season. Say Kikau goes down, I would absolutely be doing everything I could to get Carraz. Carraz. Man, Carraz is absolutely on my mind. Living rent-free. No, it would be Preston. I would absolutely go for Preston at that point because even if you look at all the stats, he suddenly explodes by 10 to 15 points more when he's not playing with Kikau. And the reality is they just run down Kikau's side and they leave Preston catching a cold out on the right-hand side. So from my perspective, I just wouldn't do it unless I could see that kind of scenario happens.
Yeah, that's so validated as well. Without Kikau last year, just in 2025, 67 average. With Kikau, 53.9. So still a great average, but like if his price drops and then Kikau's gone for say 8 weeks or something with some sort of injury, jump on. And then over the career, it's still validated. With Kikau, he has a 50.9 average. Without Kikau, he sits at a 57.7. So it's massive whenever Kikau's not in that side.
And then your next question is, then why don't we go for Kikau? But the problem is that he's generally always priced at his output. So therefore, you can't really find value there.
Yeah, and he's a massive injury risk. Like he's still
Yeah.
carrying that back injury,
Yeah, correct.
where apparently news from last year, if any coaches remember, he's going to have to carry that injury for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
He can get surgery on it, but it will likely mean the end of his career. But he can also play with it and doesn't need to do anything. He just has to pain manage. So just think, like someone with that kind of injury, like any given week, he could need a 1 or 2 weeks off. It's just like an Adam Reynolds, but in a Bulldogs jersey.
Yeah.
The special one I think we got to touch on here, Bailey Hayward. You give your take first because it is absolutely brilliant.
My main problem with Hayward, so he's priced at 375. Great price. Excellent. I was tempted to do it right from the start. So I think my very first team build, I had Hayward at hooker because it was like, yo, I can spend so much money elsewhere. When you actually then do not even a very deep dive, just have a look into his stats. He's priced at 28. His last year's average was 29 and a half. Right there, you've got very little wiggle room. So what you're hoping for is that he's going to average somewhere in the mid 40s or higher. The problem is every time he has started at hooker, his highest score is 48 and his average is 34. So he really hasn't ever done it before. So what you're banking on is that suddenly he changes his form from the whole of his career so far. So is he good enough to really make the step up? And the crazy thing is that when he did score that 48, he made 51 tackles. All of that is just tackle bot. He's not getting any attacking stats whatsoever. So therefore, what you are relying on is that he's always going to be that tackle bot that basically never misses tackles to try and get him up towards the 50. The reality is that when he has scored 40s, 42, 27, they've all been basically really low work rate. From my mind, there is much better choices to be made in hooker. And that's really where it comes down to, is that if you put his stats versus other people, doesn't compare. It's
Yeah.
not even the right move. Now you could decide, look, that's what I want to do to be a pod. I'll be different to everyone else. Unfortunately, you can't even win there because 26% of people have him. And I think really the most reason that people are getting him is because he's cheap and it allows other people to have better players in their team. They're chasing points rather than value. And I just don't see it.
I think a way better option, mimicking the coverage hooker mid, is Chris Randall, but we'll save a lot of his chat for the Titans podcast.
Or even, and I mean, I hate to say it, and because it's burnt me a lot in the past, but a 300k cheese who could be starting is even much, much better. And that's even considering the PTSD that I have with owning cheese.
Yeah, stuff for PTSD. Cheese has been rehab. He is ready to go. I just want him in my team, man. I love Cheese. He's one of my favorite players, just like to watch. Off topic for 2 seconds. If you ever just watch Cheese in a footy game, he's not even near the ball. Watch his reaction. His head is down, sprinting as hard as he can. Like his off the ball effort is insane.
Yeah.
Like he just loves being out there and will do anything for the boys. Absolutely love Cheese. Again on Bailey Hayward, just to add there. So he's a 28. He's priced at 28. He already needs to hit, say, that 40 mark, or say 38 to 40 mark, as you said, to generate that 10 points of value. However, Marnie leaving does open up him for a potential start in that role. But even with increased minutes to that 60 range, it does nothing for his scoring range. So his 5 scores in starting hooker are 40, 48, 42, 27, and 13, all over 60 minutes, which is probably the range he's going to be playing in. All super tackle heavy, barely any attacking stats, a heap of missed tackles, 2.8 average per game. He makes 1.4 errors per game. He makes 14.8 average meters gained and kicks 50.2 average gained. But that's one game that was 114. The rest are all 50 or under. He is just not on the radar for me at all. Hooker mid DPP, I don't care. There's better options. Brendan Smith's hooker mid DPP for what, 75k less.
Because at least you're right. At least with Cheese, we know what we're getting. Hayward's a massive gamble because what you are expecting him to do is something he's never done before in his career.
Yeah.
And you could argue we saw that last year with Bailey at the Sharks. We'd never seen that before, and he just made this massive step up. And so then we all jumped on when we watched enough. So even at the minimum, Hayward is a watch, definitely not a buy.
100%, 100%. I think he'd be up there for me, maybe one rung below Dylan Brown as a big trap.
Yeah, he's right up there for me.
One here we haven't really touched on is thoughts on Leo Thompson. I think that he's probably going to lose about 5 minutes on average moving to the Bulldogs. He won't be as demand there for big minutes as he was at the Knights, being like the main prop. And I think his minutes directly correlate with his scoring. So for me, he wasn't really on the radar anyway. So I won't be going out to throw money at him to start the season. He's pretty much on the same level there as Max King. Not someone I'm really considering. But do you have any thoughts there on Leo Thompson?
Yeah, I mean, he's on my watch list as a possible pod option, because we know that when he's onto it and he's playing really well and he's got that freedom and he's got that ability to kind of back himself, he can get close to a point per minute player. But ultimately, price at 45, and he was a 48 average last year. Yeah, I'm not convinced yet. Price at 610. It's up there. I think there's better value elsewhere, and I would be keener to back like a Couchman or a Stewart or even a Yo over Leo Thompson. Like, I'm just not going to go there. Some coaches will look at it because he's 1.62% owned, so huge pod range. He has the pedigree, but will he be able to do it at a brand new team? Yeah, what are his minutes going to look like? What rotation? What's his role? Yeah, again, he's someone who's on my watch list.
I think what I will finish on for this podcast is when we talk about watch list or players that we're watching, there's so many different ways you can do this. Sorry, I'm struggling with a flu, I think, here at the same time I'm doing this potty. So, like, every time I speak too heavily or too softly, I just feel a cough coming. But I'm good.
Is it just what they call the Aussie flu? You know, when Aussie's just a bit soft. Is that
no? You probably wouldn't know, but the only time you get this flu is probably because you've never heard of it. Is when your team actually wins a premiership in the NRL. I've just put a target on my back. Anyway, sorry, Waz. Now, what I was getting at with the watch list is you can do it so many ways. You can write a player down on a piece of paper, write in your phone notes. But NRL Fantasy, the official app, has one of the best ways to actually monitor this, where you can simply just click on any player you want and it'll bring up their little stat profile. It'll tell you like their break even, round one projections, the team they're versing, ownership percentage, etc., their price, position, and then as their name, a little photo of them, and just above their name is a yellow star. You click that star, they now all of a sudden become a watch list player. And then now if you want to see how those players are doing, in your player pool on the right where you select your players to start a season, you just look down the little list here. It says order by, price, all teams, all positions. There's a little tab here just below dual player positions only, players with an available status only. It says show watch list. You toggle that on and every player you've clicked on to be on your watch list will be there. You can also do it in different views within the app as well, so you can see more stats. It's an absolutely incredible feature. It's how I do my watch list.
You can also do it in footystats.com as well.
Yeah.
Very similarly. So you can just click on the big pink button that says add to watch list. And then you can kind of delve deeper into the stats. So I kind of do it there because I can then start doing other things that the NRL app doesn't allow you to do, which is how do they play with this player, without this player, or you can even compare some players on your watch list together. So you can do quick compare, which I really rate, because then if you're looking at, like, say, we're saying that there's tons of value at half, you can compare from last year 4 or 5 key half players and be able to ascertain, like, which one am I going to invest in to start 2026. So you can't do that in the NRL app. So that's why I do it within Footy Stats.
Yeah, Footy Stats does have a bit of range in terms of stat profile as well, as opposed to NRL Fantasy. And just for the listeners as well, we don't take any kickbacks from NRL Fantasy or NRLFantasy.com. But if they're interested, we're more than happy. But that's it for the doggies. Next up is the cows to finish off our little trio of potties today, and then we'll change clothes and do another 3. But thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.